I never thought much about afternoons at the corner cafe. It was the kind of place where the tables always rocked on uneven legs, and the chalkboard menu hadn't been updated in years. I usually stopped in after class, partly for the coffee, mostly because it felt less empty than going straight home. That's where I first noticed her. Noticed, not met, because meeting would have implied introductions, handshakes, some kind of acknowledgement. We didn't do that. She just happened to be there, usually with a book she never seemed to read past the first few pages. Mid-40s, maybe a little older. Not polished, not trying to be. She wore her hair tied back like it was always getting in her way. At first, she was just part of the scenery. Then one day, she remembered my order before I even opened my mouth. "Medium drip, no sugar, right?" she said, half smiling, like it was nothing. I should have just nodded, thanked her, moved on. But something in the way she said it made me linger. Like I'd been quietly cataloged by someone who was paying attention. "You work here?" I asked. "No," she said, laughing under her breath. "Just observant." We didn't talk much after that. A line or two, here and there. She teased me once about how I folded my napkin into neat little squares, like I was preparing for an exam. Another time, I caught her glancing at my phone screen when I typed a message and then erased it. She didn't say anything, but her eyebrow lifted, like she'd seen the same hesitation before. Truth is, I didn't have anyone to send those texts to. Not really. I'd open a blank message, type something like, "Hey, you around?" and then delete it before I hit send. It was easier to stay invisible. But she wasn't invisible. She carried herself like she knew how heavy silence could be, and somehow she was comfortable inside it. I found myself watching small things, the way she set her coffee down before answering, like she needed both hands free for even a short sentence. The way her eyes flicked toward the door every time someone new walked in, as if she was expecting them. One late afternoon, the cafe was nearly empty. Rain tapped against the windows in that half-hearted way, not enough to call a storm, but enough to keep people inside. She was sitting 2 tables away, absently stirring her drink long after the sugar had dissolved. "You always do that," I said, surprising myself. "Do what?" "Keep stirring when there's nothing left to stir." She tilted her head, a slow smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. Maybe I just like the motion. That silence again, stretching out. I folded the edge of my napkin, smoothed it, folded it again. She watched, but didn't make a joke this time. I almost asked her name. Almost. But something held me back, the strange comfort of not defining it, of leaving it unnamed. When I finally got up to leave, she looked at me, steady but not insistent, and said quietly, "This stays between us." No context, no explanation, just those words, placed carefully like she knew they'd replay in my head long after I walked out. And she was right. I couldn't stop thinking about them. It had been a week since she said it. "This stays between us." The words still sat in my head like a stone at the bottom of a glass, impossible to ignore, even when nothing else seemed to stir. I told myself I wouldn't go back to the cafe that often, that I'd switch things up, maybe try the library or just stay in my room. But the truth was, I went. And there she was, always at the same table, always with that unopened book and her coffee cooling faster than she drank it. This time, I sat closer, close enough that if she shifted her chair even slightly, our knees might brush. She didn't, but she noticed. "You've been scarce," she said, not looking up from the cup she was cupping with both hands. Midterms, I lied. I didn't want her to know the truth, that I'd been avoiding her because I couldn't stop replaying her words. She finally met my eyes. "You're what, 20? 21. Still too young to know better." Her tone was dry, but there was something softer under it. I laughed, though not because it was funny. "And you?" 46, she said, without hesitation. "Old enough to know better." That should have been the end of it. An invisible line drawn in the air between us. But instead, she added, "I was your age when I married." She said it like it wasn't a story she wanted to tell, but like part of her wanted me to know anyway. She didn't go further, and I didn't ask. Still, The sentence stayed with me. Married at my age, now divorced. I wondered what the gap between those two moments had looked like. The rain had started again outside, heavier this time. The kind that blurred headlights into streaks and made people linger where they were. Neither of us seemed in a hurry to leave. You ever feel? I started, then stopped. I rubbed the edge of my coffee sleeve with my thumb. Like you're just waiting for something, but you don't even know what it is. She didn't answer right away, just leaned back, eyes narrowing slightly as if she was searching her own memory. All the time, she said finally. We sat in silence. Not uncomfortable, not exactly. Just full. Like there was more in the air than the space could hold. She pushed her cup toward me suddenly. Taste this. Too sweet for me. I hesitated, then took a sip. The tea was lukewarm, honey clinging to the back of my tongue. I slid it back. You're right. Too sweet. Her smile was small, but it lingered longer than it should have. And that was when the doubt crept in, sharp and inconvenient. I thought of my friend, her son, the one who'd introduced us only once in passing, never imagining I'd end up here, sitting across from his mother like this. The thought made me shift in my seat, guilt pressing at the edges. She noticed. You're overthinking. Maybe. Don't, she said, almost kindly. Then she added, not everything has to mean something. But the way she looked at me when she said it, steady, unblinking, made it mean everything. When the rain let up, she stood, gathering her bag with the same quiet efficiency I'd come to expect. I thought that was it. Another afternoon folded into memory. But then, as she passed me, she rested her hand lightly on my shoulder. Just for a second. Warm, grounding, nothing more than a passing gesture. Except it was more. I felt it long after she was gone, her touch replaying in my body like a ghost refusing to leave. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. The next time wasn't planned. It never was. I dropped by the cafe after a late class, expecting quiet, maybe a seat near the back. She was already there. Different this time, though, hair loose, not tied back, strands falling into her face. She kept brushing them away, then letting them fall again, as if undecided whether she cared. I almost turned around, pretended not to see her, but she looked up right then, and it was too late. You again, she said. Guilty. I sat down across from her without asking. She didn't protest, but she didn't smile either. Just tapped the rim of her cup, once, twice, like she was keeping time with something only she could hear. You're quieter today, I said. Maybe I have nothing to say. Or too much, I offered. Her eyes flicked up at me. Not annoyed, not amused, just caught. I wanted to hold her gaze, but a voice cut through the room. My friend. Her son. He'd come in with a couple of classmates, all noise and energy, shaking rain from their jackets. My stomach dropped. She noticed first. The shift in me. The way I leaned back, suddenly guilty. She didn't move, though. Just sipped her coffee as if nothing had changed. Relax, she murmured. He won't see. Still, I couldn't help glancing over. He was at the counter, laughing with the barista, back turned. I exhaled slowly, tried to steady my hands on the table. You shouldn't, I started, then stopped. Shouldn't what? Her voice was low, steady. Be here, with me, like this. The corner of her mouth curved, but it wasn't a smile. More like she'd heard it all before. Maybe you're right, she said. We sat there in the hum of voices and espresso machines, silence pulling tighter around us. She reached across the table, not all the way, just enough that her fingers brushed the handle of my mug. Barely contact, but I felt it. I don't know what you want, I said, too quiet for anyone else to hear. Her hand stilled, then pulled back. Neither do you. That should have ended it. Maybe it did. Except, when the noise at the counter rose, his laugh, louder now, she leaned forward just slightly. Close enough that I could see the faint line of tiredness under her eyes, the way her lips parted as if she was about to say something she hadn't meant to. I thought she might kiss me, or maybe I just wanted to believe it. My chest tightened with the possibility. But she stopped halfway, a breath between us. Her gaze held mine for one suspended moment, long enough to feel dangerous, short enough to deny. Then she pulled back, smoothed her hair like nothing had happened. "See you around," she said, standing. And just like that, she was gone, leaving me staring at the space she'd nearly filled. It was late when I saw her again, not at the cafe this time. The sidewalks were mostly empty, shop windows already dark, only the hum of a street lamp buzzing overhead. She was sitting on a bench near the bus stop, though I doubted she was waiting for a bus. I almost walked past. Almost. But then she lifted her head, and I stopped like I'd been caught. "You're out late," I said. "So are you." I sat down, leaving space between us. Too much, maybe. The night air carried the smell of rain on concrete, sharp and clean. For a while, neither of us spoke. She rubbed her thumb along the strap of her bag, over and over. "My son's back this weekend," she said finally. "Oh." My throat felt tight. "He mentioned you. Said you hadn't been around much." I tried to laugh, but it came out thin. Didn't want to intrude. "You're not intruding." Her words came quickly, sharper than she probably meant. She looked down, exhaled. I don't want this to get messy." I nodded, though I didn't know what this even was. A few conversations. Shared silences. A touch that wasn't supposed to mean anything but did. "Do you regret it?" I asked quietly. "What?" "Talking to me. Letting it get this far." She didn't answer right away. Her fingers tightened on her bag strap. Finally, she said, "Sometimes I think I do. But then you say something." She stopped, shaking her head. "And I can't." The space between us seemed smaller now, even though neither of us had moved. "You don't get it," she added, softer. "I shouldn't even be here. You're young, and I don't." I cut in. My voice surprised me, steadier than I felt. "Don't say it like it cancels everything." Her eyes found mine then, searching. The kind of look that asks for an exit and an answer at the same time. A car passed slowly, headlights sweeping over us, then fading. The silence that followed was heavier. "I watched you once," I admitted. "At the cafe. You were laughing at something on your phone. I don't know why, but I wanted it to be me you were laughing at." I broke off, staring at the ground. "Forget it." Her breath caught, almost too quiet to notice. She turned slightly toward me, knees angled closer. "Don't erase it. Not with me." My pulse hammered. Every part of me wanted to close the gap, but the thought of her son, of the unspoken rules hanging above us, pulled me back. "You'll hate yourself," I whispered. "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe I already do." Her hand slipped from her bag to rest on the bench between us, inches from mine. Neither of us reached, but the possibility sat there, unbearable. I wanted to ask if she thought about me when I wasn't around. If she wondered, like I did, how much of this was accident and how much was choice. Instead, what came out was, "What do you want?" The question hung there, raw and unfinished, echoing louder in the silence than any answer could. She didn't speak. She just looked at me, lips parting, eyes unsteady. A second stretched, then another. And before anything could happen, before either of us moved, the bus hissed up to the stop, brakes squealing. She stood quickly, clutching her bag, as if the decision had been made for her. She didn't get on. Not right away. Just stood there, watching me through the reflection of the bus window. Then quietly, like she was asking herself more than me, she said, "What are we doing?" After that night at the bus stop, I didn't see her for a while. I told myself it was just timing. Different schedules. Different corners of the city. But days blurred into a week, and the cafe felt emptier without her. The chair she usually took stayed vacant, though I still caught myself glancing at it every time I walked in. Once, I asked the barista casually, "Does the woman who reads here, dark hair, glasses sometimes, does she still come in?" "Her? Haven't seen her lately," he said, shrugging. I wanted to leave it at that, but the emptiness gnawed. Every night I replayed her question, "What are we doing?" Like maybe I'd missed the answer hidden inside it. When I finally did see her, it wasn't where I expected. Grocery store, late evening. She was bent over a cart, checking labels like she was somewhere else in her head. For a second I thought about walking past, pretending I hadn't noticed. But my feet didn't listen. "Hey," I said. Her reaction was too slow, like she needed a second to remember who I was. Then she smiled, small, polite, like a stranger you half recognize. Not the same smile she used to have. "Hi." That was it. Just hi. I tried again. "Haven't seen you around." "Been busy," she said, eyes on the pasta jar in her hand. "Work. Family. Family." The word snagged. I wanted to ask what that meant. Her son? Someone else? But her tone warned me off. "You okay?" I asked. "I'm fine." She said it too quickly, then placed the jar in her cart with careful precision, as if arranging her words wasn't enough. We stood in that aisle, two people who had once leaned so close that silence had almost tipped into something else, now performing small talk between canned tomatoes and cereal boxes. She checked her watch. "I should go." "Yeah, of course." And then she was gone, cart rattling down the aisle, not looking back. That night, I almost texted her. I typed, "Did I do something?" Deleted it. Then, "I miss our talks." Deleted again. Instead, I just stared at the empty screen, thumb hovering, my reflection faint in the black glass. 2 days later, I ran into my friend, her son, on campus. He was grinning, talking fast, not noticing the way my stomach clenched. "Crazy, right? My mom's been seeing someone again. First time in years." I forced a smile. "That's good. Yeah, she deserves it. About time." His words rang louder than the rest of the conversation. Seeing someone. Not me. Of course not me. That night, I didn't go to the cafe. Or the next. I walked aimlessly instead. Streets, parks, places that didn't carry her shadow. Still, she followed me in small details. The way someone stirred tea too long, the scrape of a chair on tile, the sound of rain against glass. I wanted to believe I felt heartbroken, but it wasn't that. It was worse in a way. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. I drafted a message. "If you're happier, I won't bother you. Just tell me it meant something." I stared at it until the words blurred, then locked my phone without sending. The next day, I went to the cafe. Her chair was empty, the table wiped clean. Someone else sat near the window, headphones in, head down. I didn't sit, just stood there, scanning the room like maybe she'd walk in any second. But she didn't. It was late again when I finally saw her. Not at the cafe, not in the grocery store, but outside her apartment. I'd been walking past, or at least, that's what I told myself, when I noticed her light still on. The window was cracked, curtains half drawn, a glow spilling out into the quiet street. I almost kept going. Almost. But my feet betrayed me, slowing until I was standing at her doorstep, staring at the door like it might open on its own. Before I could knock, it did. She stepped out, a bag of trash in her hand, and froze when she saw me. We both stood there for a beat too long. Then she exhaled, dropped the bag by the bin, and said softly, "You shouldn't be here." "Maybe not," I admitted. My voice was steadier than I felt. But I couldn't keep not saying anything. She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, her eyes unreadable. The silence pressed down, familiar and unbearable. "You disappeared," I said. I had to. "Why?" Her lips tightened. "Because I was starting to want something I shouldn't." The words hit harder than I expected. Not because they surprised me, but because they didn't. "I thought it was just me," I said. Her eyes flicked up, then away. "You're 21. You'll forget me by next year." "You really believe that?" She didn't answer, just rubbed her hand along her arm like she was cold, though the air was mild. I stepped closer, not too close. "I don't care about rules, or age, or who knows who. I faltered, breath catching. "I just don't want to pretend it doesn't matter." Her gaze finally met mine, and something cracked in it. Exhaustion, maybe, or the effort of holding back too long. "You think I haven't thought about it?" she whispered. "Every time you sat across from me. Every time you looked at me like I wasn't invisible anymore." Her voice broke, barely. "It's not that simple. I know." The night carried the sound of a passing car, the crunch of gravel under tires. Then quiet again. What happens if we cross that line? She asked. Not hypothetical. Real. I lose more than you do. I wanted to promise her she wouldn't. That everything would be fine. But lies felt like the one thing we hadn't traded. So I said nothing. Just stood there, the space between us thick with the truth neither of us could fix. Finally, she sighed. You should go. I nodded slowly, but my body didn't move. If I walk away now, I won't come back. Her breath hitched, and for a moment I thought she might let me go without a word. But then, almost inaudible, she said, I don't want you to go. It wasn't a confession. Not quite. But it was enough. Something eased in my chest, fragile and temporary, but real. I stepped closer until we were face to face, the porch light drawing shadows across her tired eyes. I didn't touch her, didn't kiss her, just reached out, brushed my fingers against hers, tentative, waiting. She didn't pull away. Her hand stayed in mine, warm and trembling. She looked at me, no words, just a faint, almost broken smile. Okay, she whispered. And that was it. No promises, no declarations, just the smallest human connection, heavy with everything we hadn't said. Time didn't stop after that night. It never does. But it shifted, slightly, like the rhythm of the days had been nudged into something new. I didn't see her every day. That would have been too much, too suspicious. But often enough that the gap between us didn't grow again. Sometimes at the cafe, sometimes in the hallway outside her apartment, where our conversations were softer, unhurried, like we were building something fragile with ordinary words. One morning, weeks later, I found myself in the cafe earlier than usual. 8:47 a.m. The clock above the counter ticked too loudly, the place half full of commuters tapping their feet, waiting for coffee before work. I almost left, but then she walked in. Same table, same unopened book. She smiled when she saw me, tired but real. You're early. So are you, I said. I ordered my usual black coffee. She ordered tea, stirring it too long, as always. This time, she slid the cup across the table before I even asked. Taste it. Tell me if it's too sweet. I took a sip. Lukewarm, honey heavy. I handed it back. Still too sweet. Her smile lingered. Good. Thought maybe I'd lost the habit. We didn't need to say more. The moment was enough. Later that week, we walked together through the small park near her place. The same bench where she once sat late at night, asking what are we doing, was empty, waiting. She gestured toward it, and we sat down, side by side. I don't feel paused anymore, I said, watching the leaves shift in the wind. She tilted her head, curious. I used to feel like life forgot to finish the sentence, I added. But not now. She didn't reply right away. Just let her hand drift against mine on the bench's worn wooden slat. Not holding, not grabbing, just there. Enough. Time passed like that. Not perfect, never simple, but steady. Her son still didn't know, and maybe he never would. There were still long stretches when we kept our distance, out of necessity. But when we did meet, in the quiet corners of life, in coffee shops, on late walks, on her doorstep at the end of long days, it always felt like the sentence picked up where it left off. One evening, she surprised me by laughing, a real, unguarded laugh. Something on her phone, maybe a message from work, I didn't even know. But the sound stuck with me, the way it had that first time, when I'd wished it was me making her laugh. This time it was. She looked at me, still smiling, and said, You always fold napkins like they're exam papers. I don't know why I love that about you. I didn't answer. Just let the words land, heavy and simple, the way everything between us always did. Later, when we parted for the night, she touched my hand again at her doorstep, not fleeting this time, not trembling. Just hers and mine, steady, like it had finally found where it belonged. No grand speeches, no declarations, just earned quiet, like two people who knew better and still chose anyway. And in the silence, in that smallest space between leaving and staying, I realized this was enough. More than enough. Something only we would understand.